Morning YouTube. So we just prepared a presentation. Oh, hello. We just prepared a presentation. It's about a concept called Disliteras. Basically, it's about a concept for remembering what will give you possibility of understanding at some level, meaning remembering something that can help you categorize whatever is of necessity at that moment to further advance in something of your personal idea, or even just also anything you want to obsolete, or just whatever is important in your life and therefore sometimes also work, meaning a concept for ordering patterns to not a submissive but a subsequent quote of or non-virtue, meaning basically a quote of or non-virtue. So finding one's own virtue, we refer to ritual sire series, meaning ritual is the video. This is a 5 or 7 step long video on the channel Sirius, and the video compass. The channel is a little bit difficult to find. Need to check next few days if we can insert the link down below. So virtue. What is virtue? Virtue is of course not talent. Virtue is of course not character. And virtue is of course nothing really that is so easily defined. Also, everyone has their own definition. But virtue is basically, by this definition, what is of such obsessive something that it is not yet conceptualizing, but rather a subwhale that, because the necessity is still separated from that which gives fundament to it, but at the same moment doesn't really give that fundament, so it is complete and therefore doesn't obsolete it and the reason to find the necessity of whatever is searched by or causalated to. Of course, this is always difficult to find. One tip to find it can be found by gaining understanding concerning one's own dreams that are manifested, meaning that which you understand by your emotions is of such definite consequence that it is to be encompassing, and therefore from derivating the compass of its true cause none to the apart-stealing ways. Meaning, when the compass directs you towards whatever you want to achieve and whatever you are striving for, the apart-stealing ways is that which really will give you no reason at all, but still are somehow interesting and somehow of such idea that they which be found, meaning that they are still of interest in such a way that they could be something you would strive for, but the compass rather tells you not to do it. Now the compass doesn't do this obviously. That's why you need to first derivate the compass from what its true cause is, and then try to understand what the apart-stealing ways are. For example, that if you try to paint a diagram, you don't really want to know how that diagram is painted and why you insert the amount of basic design tools, but you rather want to paint just the true idea what the diagram is supposed to at least be realizing. Now, so step 1 of the concept: find a picture of, for example, nature, not beings or entities, and if you found such an idea that is of subverted, vicious, not but impermanence, that you can correlate with it, you want to formulate a consequence of development in that picture. So for example, if you choose nature, just Take wind, for example, as an element, just like in the video ritual of Psi series. Now, step 2. Set a quote from a book or something of thus which you like, or thus you like, better said. Envision that quote. Can be from yourself, can be from a book, can be from something you've written, something you've seen. Be careful which you choose, because people are sometimes really difficult when it comes to working with stuff they put up in the open. And choose that quote from that idea that you can use. And once you have chosen that and understood that quote, you now will need to somehow associate it with what is the picture. And for that association, you need something that is rather of no direction or conceptualization of which is the same. Meaning, don't imitate nor decipher it to the picture. Separate it not, but also don't correlate it with each other yet. And give a meaning to the imitation drawn from that process. Meaning, the imitation here, that process is where the quote is slowly, but definitely being somehow changed to whatever you interpret into whatever that would be meaning. You hear a little bit too angrily spoken, but it was just connotation to give understanding that every time you interpret something, of course, logically, you give your own meaning to that idea. And to understand when this meaning of imitation, meaning this meaning causes imitation, drawn from that process, and when the picture and the quote are starting to being more of a somehow a simulation, then the realization or realizing of that which is now giving the initial first obscure meaning of yourself, even if one to speak like this, meaning your first interpretation of it, and where the two ideas start to be more of whatever the mind is trying to reason from it. And that is basically the problem here. Try to reason its path. Try to reason where your own meaning starts to be of such idea that the quote is now accumulated to something that is rather of your own idea, or notion. And once you found that, the goal, travel, what is the path, or which will at all, meaning once you found these three ideas, the goal, travel, meaning the compass, where it is of derivating nature, or where the derivating ideas, the path-stilling ways, are not of such idea that the compass is influenced. What is basically this, the basic obvious truth from this by you, the path. The path can be many things, previously now explained by when the meaning to the imitation drawn from that process is somehow not, but starting to be imitation. And trans, that's the step, as step 7 now, up on that way with an emotion of minimalistic relevance, close to no importance, or any relevance, but the most obvious ones not cut out at all essential description, all with the part of the picture you easily devote to what the quote art by. So entrance the step with something of an emotion, and arrive at that point where that is really a minimalistic emotion you now accompany with the with step 6. Meaning, by doing this, you will need to first understand where the imitation is starting, meaning where you start to reason the path. You can, for example, take a step on that path and try to reason how this interacts with you as a minimalistic emotion at base level. you try to understand where the compass is derivating and makes you feel, for example, disconcerted, and the path, or better said, what is, meaning the obvious truth from this by you, as wherever your emotions are then calling, the abstracted conventional or converting subveil to which is the rest, and also the all, or the all of rest by, meaning at all with the part of the picture you easily devote to what the quote ought by. For example, if you take the wind from the nature and you understand in the quote that when the leaf moves like this, your path is now emotionally different, you now have attributed to the first step a minimalistic of motion of disconcern, at least. To the picture itself, you try to give the emotion of knowledge and try to understand how the picture is differentiating you, and by understanding it from what will give you such idea that it will further advance your knowledge. And once you have these two motions set as separated ideas from what the quote is and the imitation of the quote, you can understand that the devotion you yourself have to whatever the connecting trails formalize what the quote ought by, and how the quote is interacting with you on such level that your path is now derivated by how the association and correlation with that picture is, making you be different in where the imitation of the quote starts to change on the way. So usually I think you would start with trying to understand how the imitation is at base level different, but that's not what you want to do. You want to understand where on the further steps of the way the leaf, how it is formulated by whatever the wind is changed up by the quote, is now changing. Thus you now have understood where the emotion are different to when the path is walked, and therefore the path will be more easily accessible at some point, maybe. So how you could do this is with a table, with pictures, if you want to write it down, with numbers, not so much, or just by formalizing a new idea of whatever you as literature define, or for example also just time of evenings. Well, this is just a simple idea for understanding this concept. Thank you for listening. This was rather than this time of our own nature, because the last time we basically said we published basic knowledge, or knowledge that is already there. This, of course, a process many people do, but I don't think this way.